Conflict is a sign that the way we're working together isn't working. That's why we've created our Conflict Resilience course series to help groups not just engage conflict, but also build the conflict resilience that's needed to harness the transformative power of conflict. In Course 1, Building Conflict Resilient Organizations, you'll learn how to create important agreements and policies to be prepared for conflict before it happens and engage conflict well when it inevitably emerges. What does an organization need to do to build resilience and successfully practice conflict engagement? Well, first, what do we mean by resilience and engagement? Well, by resilience, conflict resilience means that we're prepared for conflict before it happens. And engagement, conflict engagement means that we are able to respond to conflict well in the moment. And we have an entire conflict resilience model.
And we build our whole model off of this 5-step process that comes from the somatic psychological work of Ray Castellino. And it says that we move through these 5 phases of action anytime we're kind of going through a change process. We set intentions, we prepare, we take actions, we follow through, and then we integrate. Setting intention is figuring out what is my underlying goal and motivation? What am I really trying to do here as I engage? Preparing is how do I need to organize myself, my thoughts, and my body to get myself ready to actually be able to move in alignment with that intention that I set. Taking action is how do I engage with the outside world to take action in alignment with that. Then after I take action, I need to actually complete the action and do the thing fully by following through. And then after I follow through, I need to integrate. Notice that I've gone through that process. I'm now in a different place than I was before. I'm recenter and be prepared to do something again. So this flow of intention, preparation, action, and follow through is the way that we organize everything inside of our conflict, our conflict approach. And when we look at the conflict preparedness policy, we use that system to organize it. So when we're thinking about conflict preparedness policy, the intentions are what we include things like, what are your organization's underlying values? What are your orientations to conflicts and your beliefs about conflict? When we're preparing for conflict, well, what do you do before it even emerges? What are the trainings that you do and the relationship building before a conflict happens? Then the actions, there's 2 basic sets of actions that we think about. One is, what do you do for an everyday conflict that can be kind of navigated and engaged with people informally? And then that next level of conflict, which is, what do you do when something requires a formal organizational response? Then after that, how do you implement the agreements that you make through that engagement process and integrate? How do you learn and evolve and recenter after the engagement? Thing to emphasize here is that a lot of people, when they think of their conflict engagement policies, the only parts that are included is really that B part of action, which is, what do we do when it's a formal organizational process? Sometimes they'll throw a little bit of intentions and values in there, but to really be prepared for conflict, to be resilient and to be able to engage successfully, we think we need all 5 of these things and to be centered and have an organizational practice of that. And that's what the conflict preparedness policy is about. It's a written record of what your organization does to build resilience and engage conflict. The reasons why I think it's really useful: first, it creates a scaffold for everything else that you already know about conflict. You probably already know something about intentions around conflict. You probably already have practices of how you prepare for conflict. You already have practices and orientations for all of these things. But by creating this scaffold, you can fit in what already works for you and understand where you might not have something in order to be able to create a holistic process. And that holistic process establishes a shared foundation. So anytime conflict happens, people get triggered, people get worried, things are escalated, it's nice to have a shared foundation to come back to and ground. And as you're having conversations and navigating things throughout the course of your organization, you're talking about how you want to be with conflict, it's really nice to have a vehicle to ground conversations, record them, and to be able to support your organization by building that piece of infrastructure. And that is really what Course 1 is all about. Course 1's focus is about building conflict preparedness policies. So we'll talk about all of these different things, and as we move through the phases, you'll you'll get templates and examples of things like the value statements and conflict belief statements. We'll go over different versions of preparation, for example, hygiene conversations, feedback sessions, how hiring and onboarding influences conflict resilience. We'll go into actions, so there'll be supports like sentence starters and one-on-one conversation tools, as well as a whole hour-and-a-half long session on processes for the 4 types of escalated conflicts that we think often require organizational intervention, which are escalated conflicts, grievances, polarizing issues, and performance issues. And we'll also talk about follow through with templates and support teams and how to integrate through debrief sessions. So that's really conflict. Like course number 1 is about how do you create this policy.